please come to order. It's Wednesday, February 19th, 2025, 12:30 p.m., give or take, and we're here in the Minnesota Senate Building in Committee Room 1150. The chair notes that a quorum is present. Thank you all for coming. The bill on the agenda today is Senate File 999. Chief author, Senator Xiong. Senator Xiong, if you could come to the testifiers table. While we're waiting for Senator Xiong, we have two witnesses listed, Mr. Jason Luce from Centerpoint and Eric Swanson to testify. I also want to note for the record, folks, that we have Senator McEwen attending the committee hearing online. With that, Senator Xiong, welcome to your committee, Mr. Vice Chair. You have the floor. Please present your bill.
Thank you, Chair. I have before you Senate File 999, securitization. Securitization is an affordability tool used in more than, first, I have a A2 amendment. Can I
Senator
move
Xiong,
that first?
Yeah, thank
before
you,
I get
Senator.
into it?
Members, we should have in your packet the A2 amendment. Senator Xiong, do you want to talk to the amendment before we adopt it?
Yeah, it's largely technical, but there are two exceptions that we will get into and the testifiers can talk.
Okay. Any questions from members on the A2 amendment? Seeing no questions from members, all in favor of adopting the A2 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed to the A2 amendment. With that, the A2 amendment is adopted. Senator Xiong, to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Chair friends. Going back to it, securitization is an affordability tool used in more than 30 states in case of an unforeseen event, such as disaster, man-made disaster, devastating storm, or a devastating storm that affects utility customers and results in extraordinary and unavoidable costs. This is made possible by enabling extraordinary costs to be spread over a longer and more manageable time frame. These costs are financed at a low interest rate through the utility's ability to issue low-cost and long-term AAA-rated bonds. This legislation is only for regulated natural gas utilities and does not affect electric or water utilities or municipal utilities. This legislation creates the regulatory and legal framework needed to enable regulated natural gas utilities to seek securitization and allows a utility the option to petition the PUC to issue long-term bonds. Customer protection, public accountability, and transparency are provided through required regulatory oversight by the PUC, which includes stakeholder input. The PUC has the authority to determine if the petition is reasonable and would provide customers financial savings and is in their best interest. Then the PUC could approve a utility to issue bonds. The commission would monitor securitization through the entire duration of cost recovery and bond repayment. Ideally, securitization is a tool that would never need to be used, but have available if an emergency arises, and is determined that Minnesotans could benefit from implementing this policy. And so with that, here with me today is Eric Swanson from Winthrop and Weinstein, and Jason Luce with Centerpoint Energy.
Thank you, Senator Xiong. Our committee administrator tells me that a fiscal note's been requested. Thought we might have it here in time, but not here, which is fine. Just want to note that for members. With that, Mr. Luce, if you want to testify, start by introducing yourself and go from there, please.
Thank you, Chair, friends, and committee members. My name is Jason Luce. I'm the Associate General Counsel at Centerpoint Energy in Minnesota. Centerpoint Energy has over 900,000 customers in Minnesota supplying natural gas. I'm speaking in support of Senate File 999. This bill provides us with an optional tool. If the PUC finds it's in the best interest of consumers, not with the company, they can use this tool. Currently, we do use this tool in other states. Right now, in Texas, for example, we are using it for storm recovery, and it's estimated will save customers $50 million in the interest rate savings. Eric Swanson from Winthrop and Weinstein is one of the folks that authored this bill, and he is here with me today to provide more information and help answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Luce. Mr. Swanson, if you could please introduce yourself and then present your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, committee members, Eric Swanson from Winthrop and Weinstein, and I'm pleased to be here testifying on behalf of CenterPoint Energy today and in support of Senate File 999. As Senator Xiong explained, securitization is a tool that can be used when there are unforeseen and extraordinary one-time events. Under traditional rate making, those kinds of events can put serious burdens on both the utilities and our customers, things like storm events that Mr. Lewis mentioned. Because, keeping reliable gas service obviously is priority one for CenterPoint and the other natural gas utilities serving in the state. And unfortunately, at times, that does require incurring extraordinary costs. These events aren't common, but they happen. And current law provides some means for gas utilities and the commission and stakeholders to work together and figure out ways to mitigate the impact of those extraordinary costs. But securitization adds one more tool. And it can provide, at times, a lower cost for customers while not harming the financial integrity of the utility, which is also in customers' long-term best interest. As Mr. Luce mentioned, the company has used securitization in other states. 30 other states have this tool available. So we're asking that that tool be available for the commission to approve in Minnesota as well. The bill provides a process to ensure that if an unforeseen extraordinary event happens, the utility can come to the commission, request approval, and the commission will thoroughly scrutinize and determine whether it really is the best option for customers. Again, this is a tool that may never be used, but it's a whole lot better to have the tool and not use it than need the tool but not have it. A couple of the key features of the bill that I'd highlight: it's entirely optional. The utility doesn't have to request securitization. The commission doesn't have to approve unless it is demonstrated to the commission's satisfaction that there are benefits for customers. If the utility does seek approval of a securitization, other parties, the Department of Commerce, the Attorney General's office, ratepayer advocates, can review, scrutinize, and weigh in on both the reasonableness of the costs. So those costs get scrutinized first to determine whether or not they're reasonable, and only then determine whether securitization is the right thing to do. When it is the right thing to do, it does, as Senator Xiong explained, spread those costs over a longer time period at very low interest rates. And that's it in a nutshell. It's a process that has worked in other states. We think it's a process that's worth having here as an option.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Members, that's all the testifiers we have. Are there any members of the public who are here who are not on our testifier list who wish to be heard? Seeing none. Members, just to be clear, it is not our intention to pass this bill out of committee today, but simply to lay it over. Having said that, are there any members who have questions for the bill author or any of the testifiers? Seeing none, Senator Xiong, you have done an outstanding, Senator Dibble.
Thanks. I almost never jump first, so I was just waiting for someone else. I was waiting for Senator Gruenhagen to ask. He usually has about 5 or 6 questions. I'm disappointed, Senator Gruenhagen. I just wanted to maybe ask some questions, or I'm just wondering about a couple of things. I don't disagree that this is perhaps a good way to offset and spread some costs out in a way that may protect ratepayers, and I appreciate this idea. We struggled with the big storm down in Texas a few years ago, and I think everyone was surprised when we found out that it wasn't just a Texas thing. It forced CenterPoint to purchase gas in an environment in which the price spiked, and there's no fuel control mechanism, and natural gas market, and so our customers were on the hook, and so then there became this entire struggle and process of how exactly our customers going to pay these big bills that are going to hit. And I know that the PUC took a look and didn't really allow for the entirety of the recapture, that the pain, if you will, was shared, that some of the financing costs, I think, were borne by CenterPoint, and there was just, there's a way to kind of levelize and even out and spread out some of the consequences and implications. I'm wondering, however, in the determination by the PUC, the magic word, reasonableness, prudence, whatever those magic words are. If we already have sufficient review in place to consider a few elements, or if we need to include those in the consideration as CenterPoint might come forward to ask for some security, it's a hard word to say.
Securitization.
Thank you, that word. Whether it's on, fuel price, or it looked like there's also an opportunity to finance damage to equipment and that sort of thing, if that should occur from an extraordinary event, to make sure that CenterPoint doesn't have a quick escape hatch for activities that it maybe should already have done or be doing. Like, the failure in Texas, of course, was the failure of the utilities to, have equipment that was of sufficient strength or hardening. That's a word that Senator Gruenhagen is fond of. He thinks we need to harden our grid. Well, they hadn't hardened the grid in Texas. I guess, for in this case, we're talking about the natural gas distribution system. And so the extraordinarily low temperatures cause the equipment to fail. And so I'm just worried about the ability to offload risk that easily, that might incent CenterPoint to not undertake some activities like making sure its equipment is sufficiently strong, or making sure on fuel price that it's, looking at, some hedging mechanisms that it might have available, whether that's, managing its inventory, having sufficient storage, purchasing some hedging, some hedging tools. I know that one of our state agencies did that a number of years ago with respect to gasoline, and a big bus agency bought some futures, locked in some low prices, those sorts of things. So, some of those diversification opportunities, just all the things that CenterPoint might do to manage risk ahead of time, whether that's in managing the risk of purchasing price or making sure equipment storage, all those things are in place. Does the PUC look at that before it says, yeah, let's securitize and offset either damage to equipment or spikes in prices?
Thanks, Senator Dibble. Mr. Swanson, why don't we give that one to you? I think the question is, what's different about the PUC's ability to look at what can be securitized if this bill passes from what we have now? Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Dibble, excuse me. The short answer to the question about what's different in the PUC's ability to scrutinize is nothing. If we go back to, for example, the aftermath of Winter Storm Uri, the commission reviewed the actions of CenterPoint and all of the other utilities first to determine, we know there's this pot of costs that were incurred. Did the utilities act reasonably and prudently in purchasing the gas to keep the pipes flowing during that event? And the commission determined that there were some areas where the companies didn't act prudently and disallowed some of those costs. That would happen again if this bill became law. The commission has to first determine, and I'd point you to the findings the commission needs to make on page 7, continuing on to page 8 of the bill. So step 1 is, has the utility acted reasonably and prudently? And I'd also say that the commission has, and the utilities and other stakeholders have been doing a lot of work on things like hedging, implementing the Natural Gas Innovation Act that provides some more fuel diversity, doing some gas resource planning now to make sure that we're exploring all avenues to keep costs as low as we can for our customers. So that's step one, is the commission first has to determine that the extraordinary event costs that we've requested securitization for are reasonable. And only then, after they determine that, so like in the URI example, after they've made the disallowance, if this tool had been available, the commission could have then looked at, does this make sense to securitize the remaining costs? Or is more traditional type of rate making a more reasonable way to recover the costs?
Thanks for that, Mr. Swanson. Senator Dibble, is that what you're looking for?
Maybe. I mean, I would like the opportunity maybe with the chief author outside of the room here to make sure that as the PUC considers a financing order of this nature, that it is absolutely taking a look at what the utility has already done to ensure that, when the utility is forced to purchase gas at these extraordinary spiked prices in the event of an extraordinary circumstance, that it hadn't been forced into some sort of a corner or a box, that it doesn't have the storage, the hedging and risk management activities that it's undertaken were sufficient or not. Also, Mr. Chair and Senator Xiong, there might be other tools, other mechanisms that are better than this securitization idea. And I want to be sure that the PUC is looking at those. For example, in the case of a damaged asset, maybe that gets just removed from the rate base and is, separately, treated as a separate matter for purpose of financing or replacement or repair, those sorts of things. I mean, there might be some other things. I want to be sure that the PUC is taking a look at. You tell me it is, and I don't not believe you. I just would like to see it either with my own eyes in another area of law or built into this analysis that the PUC undertakes. And, the other question, of course, is can the PUC allow for partial securitization? And then maybe that's a question I have. Part of the problem is remedied through securitization, and part of it is remedied through either an absorption, just a cost that the utility has to bear, and cost of doing business, taking responsibility, cutting from its own profits, or handled in some other way that it has key responsibility for. It doesn't have to be all in. We can kind of parse it. It's responsible for this percentage of the problem that occurred, and we can finance it, put it in the bill. I saw the transparency piece, which I appreciate. It has to be disclosed as a line item on the bill so people know what's happening. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Senator Xiong, before we wrap up, Senator Gruenhagen, did you have a question again? We're planning to lay this over.
Oh, I didn't have a question. I was just going to say I requested to be a co-author on this bill, so it's another bipartisan moment.
Glad to hear that, Senator Gruenhagen. Senator Xiong, it sounds like you have a few more conversations about concerns of the committee about what could and could not be securitized. You're well equipped to do that. We're going to lay the bill over. Do you have any final comments? I know how.
Thank you, Chair and Senator Dibble. We will certainly look at that to mitigate and find ways to mitigate the extraordinary costs increases and look for maybe incentives or something like that.
Thank you, Senator Xiong. And with that, Senate File 999 is laid over for possible inclusion in an energy omnibus. Members, that concludes today's agenda. Thank you for your patience. I was about to hand the gavel over to Senator Matthews. That day will come, but apparently not today. Thank you, members. We are adjourned.